Hello everyone, my name is John Scarf, and for those of you who didn't see my introductory video a few weeks ago, I am one of this fall's CPE chaplaincy students working with the hospice team in Bailey's Crossroads, Alexandria, and in the wider community. In that video, I spoke about new beginnings and how new beginnings come in all shapes and forms, and that's included for many of us having to embrace new ways of communicating and learning new forms of technology. This has been particularly evident over the last 6 months, where COVID has forced many of us to do many things differently. No longer able to meet as we would like to, we've discovered other ways of meeting. And because of social distancing, I have found myself using social media much more. My CPE program, for example, is nearly all virtual. And I've had to embrace platforms like Zoom, which along with FaceTime have become an integral part of my life, and I'm sure also of yours. Love them or hate them, they have helped many of us keep in touch, albeit not in a way that we would like at all. Though I'm not sure if Zoom, for example, is a form of social media, there is no doubt that social media has become very powerful in our society. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, for example. Yet it's hard to believe that probably 16 years ago, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube didn't actually exist. And yet today, a huge percentage of people in the US are active users of at least one or more social media platforms, and we now spend many hours each day on social media. Yet society is increasingly fearful of the risks of fake news and harmful content, and also distrustful of the very platforms that consume so much of our time. Our lives have become irreversibly online, lived with ever-decreasing levels of privacy and hyper-stimulated to a relentless pace. And if you're anything like me, I don't really think of how social media reaches into my life. For example, first thing in the morning, even before I get out of bed, I reach for my phone, and what do? I check my Facebook and Instagram accounts. I know I do it, and yet I don't actually realize the hold these platforms actually have on my life. I haven't really stopped to properly consider what it means to live in this age, where a large part of our lives can often be online. And yet, as I've slowly come to realize, that as a person, that as people of faith and of non-faith, we have an essential part to play in the shape of what has become to a great extent an online society. Advances in technology have brought sharp ethical dilemmas and deeper questions of human identity. Facebook and other platforms have formed a large part of my actual identity as a human being and continue to do so. And you know what? That's actually a bit concerning. There are important debates to be had about the exploitation of our personal data, for example, along with the threats and benefits of artificial intelligence. Because all these platforms actually have positives and negatives. And any debates actually take time, and any outcomes and proposals will require legislation, and that can be a pretty slow process. And so the question I would like to pose is there a way that we can do something right now? We as individuals, we the users of these platforms, is there a way that we can play a part in making social media kinder? Social media keeps us connected on so many levels for sure. Yet there is also a dark side where people are dehumanized and people can hurt others without any form of restraint. And for me, Twitter is a prime example of that, where people feel that they can say horrible things about other people without actually having any consequences. So I set myself a little mission. I began to reflect on how we could make social media a little bit nicer. And if we wanted to make social media a little bit nicer, is there anything that could possibly guide us in this particular endeavour? Sadly, I began to think, well, what can I do? I am but one person. Then I realised that any change begins with me firstly wanting to effect change and then taking the first step. So I got as far as that, which is good, but I hadn't figured out what that first step might actually look like. So again I asked, how can I, one person, make Facebook, etc., potentially a nicer place? Then one afternoon I found myself thinking about the Beatitudes. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Beatitudes, they are a list of sayings attributed to Jesus. As Jesus was preparing his faithful followers to teach the doctrine of the gospel, he presented perhaps his best-known discourse, the Sermon on the Mount. And this profound address is directed to all those who seek to be his disciples or his followers, with powerful instruction as the personal conduct necessary for living a Christ-centered life. And at the heart of this sermon live the Beatitudes. I say live because for me, they are very much a living thing. They are guidelines of the character traits and holy attributes that can serve as a guide for developing disciples. And yet, though the Beatitudes are in the Bible, I believe they can speak to all of us, whether we are Christian or not, whether we have faith or not, because they speak to our shared common humanity. In my opinion, it makes no difference what our theology is or is not. The Beatitudes are something that we can all take on board. So in my search to find what the first step might look like, I found a piece online about the Beatitudes and online presence, which I think is a really good starting point, and I would like to share it with you. The first Beatitude goes, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So maybe we could translate it into, I remember that my identity comes from being made and loved by God, not from my online profile. The second Beatitude, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." This world is full of grief and suffering. I will tread softly and post with gentleness and compassion. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. I will not boast or brag online, nor will I pull others down. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. There are many wrongs to be righted. I will not be afraid to name them and look for justice in the world. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. I will not judge others, but be generous online. I will be conscious of my own failings. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. I will be truthful and honest, and I will not pretend to be what I am not. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. I will seek to reconcile those of different views with imagination and good humour. And last but not least of the Beatitudes, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I will not add to the store of hate in the world, but I will try to be courageous in standing up for what is right and for what is true. As I mentioned earlier, advances in technology have brought sharp ethical dilemmas and deeper questions about our human identity. I also said that there are important debates to be had about the exploitation of our personal data, along with the threats and, of course, benefits of artificial intelligence. These will take time and will also most likely require legislation. by looking at the Beatitudes, I believe that we can also do something right now, and we can use those Beatitudes as a guide. And so in offering you this interpretation of the Beatitudes, I hope that it will allow each one of us, me and you, to reflect on our own individual online presence. I thank you for taking this opportunity to listen to me today, and I hope that it will be of some help to you. So thank you, and God bless.